Okay. Didn't work first time, didn't work second time, third time's the charm. Got it. Right. Functional programming. It has gone from strength to strength in recent years. Languages like Scala, Haskell, and Clojure, and even Elixir have captured the popular imagination. Have you seen this graph from Stack Overflow? During the day, Haskell falls off, and at night, it comes alive. People are excited. And yet, these languages form a really small part of the work that people are doing day to day in their jobs. Yet we should pay attention to them because they are at the crest of a tidal wave of mainstream movement toward functional programming. There are major companies and minor companies all around the world that are using functional programming to do their thing, but it tends to be kind of domain-specific or limited in scope. We have all seen the hype and all the success stories and all that sort of stuff, but I'm sure many of you have also seen the not success stories that blow up on Hacker News every now and then, which are tremendously entertaining. So it seems that, in general, the corporate world has struggled to make use of functional programming in a really effective and consistent way. At REA, we've been on a functional programming journey for the last four or 5 years or so, and we've been able to do it in a way that's quite effective, I think, and appears to be quite broad-based and enduring. So I'm going to tell you a bit about that and some of the lessons we've learnt. A bit about us first, for context. So we are Australia's biggest real estate website. We have hundreds of developers, mostly in Melbourne, but also some stuff throughout Asia. We have about 7 teams using Scala as a language of choice for back-end software development, which has gone up year on year. The number of code bases is now, Scala code bases is now 91 in production, which again has gone up year on year. It's a small part of the total, though most of our code is Ruby and Java as well. Beyond Scala, there's a flourishing internal functional programming community. The FP Slack channel is one of the busiest at the company, and people in other teams are using functional techniques more and more in JavaScript or Swift or Kotlin on the mobiles or Java 8 and that sort of thing. We run a weekly FP Guild session, which has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year. We sent a huge amount of people to the functional programming conferences last year, and we've had 9 people do talks at conferences about functional programming. So where I'm going with this is that I think that I can call our approach successful. It appears to be durable and kind of broad-based. And so maybe this will be interesting to you then. To the extent that we've succeeded, I believe that it's almost entirely because we have taken a human-first approach to introducing this technology. Because software, I mean, sure, there's all the tech stuff, but software development as a whole is made of humans, messy, complicated humans, and they all want things. The customers, they want their problem solved. They want things on time, they want support. Users, which might be the same people or different people as the customers, they want their lives made easier. Inside the company, the management, they care about the big picture. They care about minimizing risk. They care about organizational health and this kind of thing. Product managers, they want to get stuff out the door. They care about time to market and verifying their assumptions. Side ops, I get the impression they just want a good night's sleep mostly, but they also care about uptime and latency and security and performance and all these kind of things. QAs, when they're not ruining all our good work with their ninja-like skills, they care about determinism and reproducibility. If something is flaking out every 10 runs, then this will make life hard for them, and they like it when the world is kind of logical. And developers, we want to do great work. We want to learn things. We want to feel productive. And then finally, there's the code. It's just this little thing in this big human ocean of complicated, messy, fallible people. So the tech is fine as far as it goes, but it doesn't really make sense unless it makes people's lives better. The people are the hard bit, and the code is just this little tiny thing that's the easy bit. So the question is then, why would you bother then introducing some fancy new technical paradigm or technology or whatever, when it's the people that really matter, and not that little technology that we all love playing with so much? To answer that, well, So functional programming is based around the idea of pure functions, which are determined by input and output. Every input will produce an output. It will produce the same output for the same input every time. And from that flows mechanically and inescapably a whole bunch of consequences. So code will be more composable. It will be more reusable. It will be more testable, or at least it should be. I'm not saying you can't stuff it up. So there are good things that flow from this. And this makes developers happy, because we like it when we can locally reason about one piece of software without trying to cram everything in our head, because there are wires snaking in and out of everything, and we've got to keep track of them all. That makes us happy. So these are good results. QAs, do they care? Well, yeah. I mean, if you can write code where the same input is always going to produce the same output, that makes QAs really happy. They are living in a world that makes sense. Side ops. Well, if you're writing software with tools and techniques that mean that runtime failures don't happen or don't happen with any kind of regularity, then they can actually sleep at night. Or they can stay up and play StarCraft, but that's on them. Not my problem. Surely product managers don't care, though. Well, they don't like being told no because of some complicated technical reason that we can't do this amazing thing they want because everything's all complicated and stuffed up. If we've written code using tools and techniques that mean that we have clean modules that can be extended by addition and not by having to modify 100 things, and we can say yes to them, and they like that too. And then management. Well, what we've found is that it's been really great for hiring. There's just a lot of people excited about this kind of stuff, and it's drawn a lot of people to the company. In terms of risk, using microservices mitigates the risk of choosing this or that technology in this or that service. So that hasn't been too bad. And it's just resulted in this really vibrant and energetic feeling around the company as people absorb things. So management are happy too. That's aligning with what they want. Now, customers and users, of course, they don't care what technology we're using. But if we're using tools and techniques that allow us to make changes more reliably and not get bogged down in all entangled things, then they're happy if they're getting reliable updates. So it turns out that tech choices are important, but they're important because they can make people's lives better. That's what they're for. So, programmers and code. Programmers that have been doing this for years and years and years and decades and so forth come to a sort of appreciation where there's languages and languages and languages, and there's something there behind the languages. There's something there that's the same, no matter what language you're using. There's the way things click together, the way things interact, the way things work or don't work. There's something there beyond the languages that we have to push through the languages to get to. And they're right, because programming languages have existed for a longer time than computers have. Alan Turing invented the Turing machine in the 1930s, and Alonzo Church came up with the lambda calculus. And these are two abstract mathematical formalisms that describe computing. In theory, they describe any computer program. Any computer program can be expressed in terms of these things. And anything expressed in one can be translated and expressed in the other. And what this suggests is that computing and programs are not just something that runs on a computer. It's a part of the fabric of the universe itself. It's a thing that exists in the abstract. And so computation actually turns up in a whole bunch of places where you don't expect it in nature. Number 170 cellular automaton here performs universal computation. So in principle, any program can be expressed in the flow of this diagram. Paper after paper gets released where fluid flow, gas flow, neural networks, protein folding, brain activity, and all kinds of things give rise to computation, formally in a formal sense. Programs exist in the same way that numbers exist, not tied to some specific implementation or instantiation or manifestation, but something that exists in the universe, in some vast sum type, including every program that can ever be written or will ever be written. And everything you learn about this thing, this nature of software in the abstract, will serve you every single day of your career, in any language, in any context. Everything you learn about last week's hot web framework will serve you for the next 6 months, if you're lucky, and then you'll have to throw it away and learn it again on this great hamster wheel of rote learning other people's mistakes. So functional programming as a paradigm cuts closer to this thing, this nature of software that's there than other paradigms do. And that's why it's valuable, and that's why I think that it's something that's exciting. As the famous computer scientist Phil Wadler said, it would be a mistake to call the lambda calculus universal. It might be too limiting, because if there's a multiverse, maybe the other universes might be using it too. So, whether you think that's over the top, bear with me. So our functional programming stuff at REA has a number of components. Sure, there's code we write and there's a technological component, but mostly it's a human effort. And the central part is the FP Guild. Teams run dojos. We have Slack chat channels where people can discuss functional programming issues, ask questions, and use that as a forum for learning at whatever hour of the day or night. And then we have a central expert group then that sends people out to teams to give them assistance or training or advice or whatever they need as well. The guild meetings run every week, and the Slack channel, these are the main communication devices, and they bind together everyone who's interested in learning this kind of stuff from across the company in all kinds of different teams using different languages. It's not mandatory, so it's just whoever's interested comes along, and we tend to get a bunch of people. The central expert then group, they can run weekly training sessions, or they might do secondments into a team, or just general advice and blogs and whatever. One of the most important things, though, about our adoption of functional programming is preventing people from using Scala. Now, this doesn't have to be picking on Scala. This could be whatever language you choose. So here's a team seeking assistance that has a reasonable chance of success. They have a bunch of people that already know a bit about functional programming, or Scala in this case. They have good team sentiment. The team wants to do this. They want to learn this new thing. They have realistic expectations. They want more maintainable assets. This is a good reason to start looking at functional programming. This is a set of disciplines and mental tools and code tools that can help you do that. I can pay for an upfront learning curve. So here's the thing. This is important. Learning costs money. And if you say, I want to learn this new language, I'm going to bring on this new language and it's going to make us more productive. No, no, it will not, because learning curve costs money. And you need to be upfront with managers about this. Managers, that's their job to make decisions about the trade-offs here and say, well, yeah, I'm happy to pay for a learning curve. I know that this is going to make our deadline slip a bit while people are upskilling, and then, in expectation of a payoff later when people have a higher level of skill and we're delivering more robust software and that sort of thing. So here, this team says they can pay for this learning curve. That's something they're happy to invest in. So that has to be clear. Expectations are important. Now here's a team where the answer is absolutely not. Now, so tight deadlines on the project, meaning that they can't afford teaching people stuff. There's no room for learning in this project. There are junior programmers. Experience matters here. Ruby, that's nothing against Ruby. It's just the team might not have a lot of experience with functional programming. Complicated projects, multiple stakeholders, all kind of complicating risk factors. Half the team is remote, so communication's even harder. I heard Scala will make us more productive. No, that's not how it works. I mean, maybe eventually it will, but right now it is not. How can I make them like it? This team should not adopt a new technology under these circumstances, or under any circumstances. The answer is no. And if you push that, if you try and reflexively push some new technology without considering this, the result is going to be misery and failure for lots of people. So this is really important to have that story straight. It falls into this basic rubric, good and bad signs. Stable established teams, project can bear learning curve, good sentiment, local developers, good expectations, the bad signs, you know, bad sentiment. People don't want to do it. You know, we don't want to push things down people's throats. Nobody knows anything, so we're starting from scratch. It's the cool new thing. Have you seen that? I have. Yeah, that's a bad motivation. Press people, the people who are excited about the cool new thing, press them to care about something more important than that. It will be immediately more productive. No, you will not. Yes. So these are all, it's important to make sure you don't push new technology for every team that comes along. Yeah, here's a case study. So we had two teams, both capable, established teams with experienced developers. One did a lot of functional programming and Scala stuff. The other one was senior and capable Ruby programmers. And there was a reorg, and it was determined that they would join together in one great new team. And so that produced some interesting situations. Everyone got together and decided, well, what are we going to do now? The team voted to use Scala for upcoming work. But this immediately led to some situations. Because turns out not all of the cool things you can do with functional programming are immediately known by everybody coming to the code base. And if you're an experienced programmer, you've been doing it for 10 years, and yesterday you were a borderline heroic senior developer, and today you're a newborn baby, this is not a nice feeling. It's not a nice feeling. Nobody likes this. So the team said, yeah, no worries, let's scale it back. Monads in the bin, and we can pass arguments to constructors. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. This is the right decision for this team. This is allowing it to work. 6 months later, it was still hard. People were struggling, managing the learning curve alongside the steep, pressures of the project was hard for a lot of people, and deadlines were starting to slip, morale was starting to slip, people were feeling the pressure, and were wondering, well, have we made a mistake? But then the people that had that knowledge already, that knew Scala and functional programming well, decided to change the way they were doing things. They decided to own their teammates' experience. They decided to write blogs and articles and run training sessions and give them the keyboard when they're pairing to make their experience good and smooth and feel like their problems are being solved while they're learning this thing. They're gaining out of this by learning this new thing. They're being supported so they don't feel abandoned and, and up against the wall. And 6 months later, success. The software that produced was rock solid, really heavily type safe. There's just not a lot that can go wrong. The team felt like they'd leveled up. They were happy. Management were really happy. This was a good result. People were knocking down the door to join this team, both from inside and outside the company. And the reason that worked is because the team eventually decided to treat it as a human challenge rather than just a technical advancement. Here's one that didn't go so well. So we had a Ruby team that maybe they were a bit bored or something, and they said, hey, all the cool kids are doing Scala, let's try something new. And so they started writing this thing. They got someone from the expert team in to give them training sessions and that sort of thing. So, training sessions, that went on, and a couple of them picked up some good skills, and they churned out a code base, and that's good. So far, so good. But people enter and leave teams, and another 6 months later, they weren't there anymore. And there was a bunch of people in the team who did not have any skills with Scala or functional programming, and they weren't particularly interested to learn. So, what now? There's this thing there that nobody knows what to do with it. And so it was just sidelined, and if they ever need to touch it again, they'll probably rewrite it. And that was the end of that. And so that didn't work out quite so well. But the reason it didn't work out is the people that drove this, the people that were excited about learning some new technology, they treated it as a technical thing. They were driven by their own interest in doing something cool and advancing their skills, and they weren't thinking about their teammates. They weren't thinking about the experience that their teammates were having in doing this. And so it just fell apart and blew away. Because that's what you need to do to keep something going. And here's one that worked. It was similar in a lot of ways, but it worked better. So we had a team that had a big jumble of Java and Ruby and Scala code bases, and they wanted to use Scala for their upcoming work to have more robust assets and to lift up the skill level of their team and that kind of thing. That's a good motivation, but they needed help. And so once again, they got in someone from the expert team to run weekly training sessions. That's good as far as it goes. But this time, there was one team member in the team that already had good skills in that area, and he decided to own the experience that his teammates had. Treat it not just as a technical advancement, as a technical challenge, but as a human challenge to bring his teammates with him. And that made all the difference. Straight away, monads in the bin. Look, don't get me wrong, monads are fantastic, but there's a learning curve, and it's just not right for every team and every project to be throwing it at people. So, yeah, that was good. Montage, learning, montage. And then time passes, and so some people are struggling. But then our hero stops everything, down tools, and comes and helps out. And so the people that are starting to pick up skills, they rally around the people that are struggling. And so they don't feel dumb. They don't feel left behind. They don't feel like they're being put up against the wall when they were doing fine with Java or Ruby or whatever yesterday. They feel like they're being brought along and uplifted and supported. And that made so much difference. He put together a survey. So every week, people would fill out a survey before the training session to say, here's how I'm feeling about it. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling bad. Here's how comfortable I am with this skill or that skill, this kind of thing. And so we could track it week to week. Managers love this stuff. But it was helpful too, because we could track it week to week. And there was a kind of a zigzag shape, you know, learn, forget, learn, forget. And it was gradually going up. And then it was working. The software was coming together nicely. People were feeling more and more comfortable. And then there was still one or two people that were still struggling. But then everyone rallied. They had the whole rest of the team then stop what they're doing and rally around to help them. And it was a complete success. Really robust, clear, well-factored software came out of it. Everyone felt like they had a win. They had leveled up. They'd learned something. Management were really happy. And that happened not because of the amazing technical qualities of Scala or functional programming, but because it was treated as a human challenge to bring everyone along. There are antipatterns as well. We haven't fallen victim to too many of these at REA, but that's only because we've taken deliberate and careful action to avoid them. Lots of people, you do hear about these stories a lot of times. So the first one I like to call under the rug. And this is often recommended as a really cool way, a good way to get your favorite technology into production at your company. You know, don't waste time convincing your boss or your teammates. No, that's for suckers. We can just write some insignificant little thing, like a little logging thing or whatever in your favorite language. And then when no one's looking, Haskell and Prod, baby, living the dream. Yeah. Yeah, tick that off the bucket list. Yeah, but now what? Well, no one else is going to start writing Haskell just because there's this crappy little thing in production. They're going to ignore it and keep doing what they're doing. And so it'll just get sort of built over and forgotten about, probably get rewritten. But it's harmless, right? Well, I'm not even convinced about that. Because what if this insignificant little thing ends up being, over time, some system of record? Then we have a situation. Because now we have a team that has to deal with this radically new and different technology, and they have to grapple with it, and nobody asked them. Nobody asked them whether they wanted to go on this journey to learn this thing requiring all this spare time and effort to learn. It was just shoved down their throats. Someone just snuck it in when they weren't looking. Nobody asked the manager whether they wanted to spend his money to pay for a learning curve. And now he's got to send all these developers off to training to learn this new thing. This situation will result in bitterness. It will result in acrimony and blame and hurt feelings, and eventually this thing will go away. So this technique of sneaking something in when no one's looking is really very unprofessional, and I really don't think this is a good way of doing things. The second one I want to talk about is what I like to call the wizard tower. When we have a small group of very, very clever people doing amazing things in a little corner, and they're not really, let's say, providing a lot of visibility to other people with what they're doing. And so you get a kind of a tense situation, because they're speaking this sci-fi jargon, And don't get me wrong, I'm a massive sucker for category theory and these amazing things, but like you got to bring people along. You can't just hit people over the head with it. So the other people are just writing Java or whatever workmanly language, and so they're not being brought along. Either this crazy stuff is being shoved down their throats, or they're saying, well, how come, if that's so good, how come you're not helping me learn it? And so this is a really tense situation. It leads to hurt feelings. It leads to discomfort, and it's inevitably it will end like this. A new CTO will come along and say, whoa, what is going on here? And you know what's coming next. And no one sheds a tear. Was it bad code? No, it was probably fantastic code. But it didn't matter because they didn't bring people along. They didn't bring their teammates along. They didn't sell it. They didn't say, hey, Mr. Manager, here's how it's going to solve your problems, not just scratch my itch. And that's why it failed. Doesn't matter how smart they are. The third one I like to call flock of seagulls. And here we have a group of very highly educated consultants, and they'll come into a company and they'll hit this daggy old tech stack, and we'll say, well, we'll see what we can do here. And they'll work their magic and put every idea they've ever read about or seen at a conference into prod. And they're gone. So now what? They haven't left some utopian paradise of amazing technology. They've left a Mad Max wasteland of alien artifacts. And nobody knows what to do with that. Nobody asked them whether they wanted this. Nobody knows how to deal with it. And again, the result is going to be bitterness, acrimony. It'll all get rewritten or sidestepped, and someone will decree that the team has to use a less exciting language. And it's because it was treated as a technical challenge to do all this stuff and not treated as a human thing where people are being brought along, where you're supporting people and saying, hey, here's how it's going to solve your problems. The FP Guild is the centerpiece of our functional program community at REA. We hold it every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. and since 2014 it's been slowly increasing. We only had a handful of people show up at the start and only a couple of presenters and a couple of topics, but then it grew year on year, 15 people. Then last year we had 17 different speakers, 7 of whom were first-time speakers, close to 30 people every week. Like, this is at a company, right? 30 people turning up to a single meeting every week, and this huge range of topics. So it's been really, really successful, but that's not the default mode for these kind of groups. The default mode is they fizzle out and fade because they're too hard to run and it's hard to get people interested. But there are specific things that we've done to make that work, which I'd like to share. First of all is having a low bar. And this is really important. So we try and encourage people to time box their preparation to 2 hours to keep it rough. And that means that the lower the bar, the more likely people are to be comfortable to volunteer. Because you're depending on people volunteering to come up and get in front of a stage of people and talk about something. And especially for something like functional programming that has this reputation as being all, clever and fancy and all that, people feel intimidated, and you've really got to lower that. Make sure it's a low bar. Make sure people feel comfortable getting up and just talking about whatever they've just learned at any level. Having a lower bar means we get more speakers, means more diverse speakers, and sanity for the organisers, which is important. A group will die if the organisers are going insane. Consistency. I love this quote. This is the creator of Saturday Night Live, Lorne Michaels. The show doesn't go on because it's ready, it goes on because it's 11:30. And that's very much the attitude we take here. So we've run every single Wednesday without fail for 4 years, except for hackathons and public holidays. And how we've done that is a few ways. Having consistency there means that it builds something in people's minds. It builds an expectation. It's part of people's weekly routine. They look forward to it. They build their week around it. They'll make sure meetings are scheduled elsewhere so they can go to this thing. If it were done every other week or inconsistent time slots, it wouldn't be like that. People would forget about it and it wouldn't be such an institution. So firstly, we call for talks, and every now and then we'll get volunteers and that sort of thing. That's That's good. Then we'll pester individuals. We'll tap individual people on the shoulder and say, hey, have you been working on something cool? And quite often they'll have been working on something on their weekend, some little project, and they'll be happy to come up and share it because we keep the bar low. That's important. So with the low bar, people can come up and share whatever half-baked thing that they've got in their mind. As a last resort, one of the organisers can get up the front and just say something off the cuff. We've got a few people that know enough stuff that can basically do that. And then as a last resort, there's plenty of good functional programming videos, so we'll play a video. But the important thing is we always run. Variety is really important too. What we've found is if you just do the same topic or have the same speakers week on week, the crowds get smaller and smaller and smaller. But it's not just that there's less people, it's also less diverse people, because it's going to be this self-selected group of people that are interested in just that one little thing. And their level is going to go up, 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 up. Everyone else's is still going to be zero. And soon you'll have this unbridgeable gap and you can't grow that community again. It's just this small group that'll probably fizzle out and disappear. So we quickly figured out we had to get this really diverse range of topics, and the organisers just have to make sure that they encourage people and sort of shake the tree to get people out of the woodwork that want to speak about, you know, there's always someone that's interested in Rust or Clojure or Haskell or whatever, you know, Lisp or whatever language. So that's really important to sort of shake those people out. The most important thing is look after the beginners and the experts will look after themselves. So here's what happens when someone new comes to REA. First thing they do, they'll go to a functional guild. They've heard the buzz. They'll come along, and this is what they see. Someone's on stage talking about something amazing. A whole sea of people with little light bulbs above their head going, oh, wow, wow, getting a lot out of this. And they're at the back saying, what is going on here? I'm not getting a word of this. I'm too dumb for this. I don't belong. This is clearly not my club. I'm just going to go and, you know, I'll find someone else to hang out with. And the thing is, this is the real situation. There's like one person in that whole audience has got a light bulb above their head. The truth is, everyone is there to learn. Everyone is the same in this regard. They're there to learn new things, to advance themselves, and to do it together with other people. And that's what makes it strong. But we have to make that clear, because that's not the default setting. People will walk into that room and think they're the only one in the room that doesn't understand it. I think this is true for any technical community, but in functional programming, we have a particular problem with imposter syndrome, because there's this weird, idiotic mystique that seems to surround it, and people think that when they go into this room, when they ask a question, they'll be faced by a row of stony-faced Himalayan monks saying, I am disappointed in your lack of wisdom. But it's not like that at all. Functional programming is just a bunch of really great techniques and tools and ways of thinking that are really useful for writing great software. Functional programming is for everyone. Ruby programmers, it is for you. But the challenge is to break down the barriers to make this clear, because if you just look online, the first thing you're going to do is hit all the people that are really excited about endofunctors and cant extensions, and you'll see, you know, you'll feel like this is not your club. So we have to make it really clear that this is your home. If you are a beginner and you want to learn, this is your home. This is the place for you. Now, there's a natural bias towards advanced talks, because we're dependent on people volunteering. And what do you volunteer about? It's what you're excited about. What are you excited about? Well, it's the most advanced thing that you have just read. And so left alone, this will result in a series of very advanced talks, because it's the most excited person that is going to volunteer about things that are not very often used in the day job, that will just look like an insurmountable wall to newcomers. And this will result in people not joining. It will result in reduced participation, and no one is going to complain. No one is going to say, hey, you should make this more open to beginners. They'll just say, well, I'm too dumb for this. I'm just going to stay away. And so you can't wait for people to complain. You have to be proactive and break it down, make it clear that this is the home of people that want to learn. In conclusion, functional programming is totally awesome. It has really compelling technical benefits that just flow mechanically just from what a function is. The thing is, it doesn't matter. It does not matter a damn unless you can make it help people. No matter how smart you are, no matter how great functional programming or whatever technology you want to introduce is, what it requires is a human institution that is self-perpetuating, self-sustaining, nurturing, that establishes personal psychological safety, like Sandy was talking about this morning, and creates a culture of learning and achievement that benefits everybody and moves everyone forward. And that's what you have to do. Thanks for your time.
That was great, Ken. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Nick.
much.
Do we have time for questions?
I think we have
2 minutes.
Does anyone have a sub 120 second question? Over there. Do you need a microphone?
No, have you ever had to justify the time you spent in those meetings? Like, someone sees 30 people spending an hour at this meeting. Is that good use of time?
Yeah, so the question was, have I ever had to justify the people spend in these guild meetings? No, this is supported from the top. So the CTO has to constantly write blog posts saying, guilds are part of your job. We have a learning culture at this company. This is part of your job. It's the middle managers that sometimes lose the message and it's like, oh, deadlines, deadlines, deadlines. But this comes from the top. It's, yeah. Yeah.
Can you explain more about the expert group? Is it formed by organically or someone appointed?
Sure, the question was, can you explain more about the expert group? Has it formed organically or not? Yeah, so the answer is it's an official company team. It's a team made of senior people. I'm one of them, as you may have read between the lines. And generally, they are concerned with this holistic view of the whole organisation, because people in individual squads or teams or tribes or whatever tend to be a bit focused on what they're doing, and so you need, some senior people to be looking at the big picture. Yeah. At the front.
What sort of mix do you have between people sharing topics that they've learned on their own time outside of work versus sharing work that's been done within the company?
Sure. So the question was, what's the mix between topics that things that people have learned on their own time and stuff that's relevant to the company? Might be 50-50. Like, obviously at the start it was all outside stuff, but then as we've built more and more of a body of experience, there's been more and more people talking about work, work topics. And they're both interesting. I think it's good to have a mix, like variety, like I said. Yeah. Over here. Next question. At the back.
Why Scala is a language of choice as opposed to an Elixir where the transition curve is arguably a lot smaller and a lot easier?
Sure, yeah. The question was, why Scala? Why not a language like Elixir where the transition might have been easier and smaller? Well, I mean, all the stuff I've talked about today is none of it is specific to Scala, really. It could be whatever language. In our case, why we chose Scala. So historically, REA was mostly Ruby up to about 2011, and then we took ownership of this gigantic Java code base, and then they hired people like me to come and work on the Java code base. So it started in a Java team, a team of people that really knew Java well, and it made sense for that team to go to Scala as a sort of a point of least resistance. So like one of the things that kicked it off is I sparked out a closure service, and everyone thought that was really cool, and then the vote came up and everyone voted for Scala because they thought closure looked weird. So it made sense for that team, and then it just grew, it just snowballed from there. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.